Welcome to the Infinite Wealth Podcast. I'm Cameron Christensen, along with our co-host Anthony Faso. We just wrapped up our interview with Lance Graulich, founder and CEO of Ion Franchising. Anthony, what do you got a takeaway or two for us?
Yeah, there was a few. For one, I realized he was a listener of the Infinite Wealth Podcast because he referenced your favorite movie, Zohan.
You did,
right?
Yep.
Or Don't Mess with the Zohan.
That was flattering.
And what I think was cool, because with this podcast, right, what we're talking about is let's create some passive income, right? Our passive income is more than our monthly expenses, but which sounds great, right? But how do you get there?
Yeah.
How do you create passive income? And there's a lot of ways to do that. And I know that we talk a lot about real estate, which is a great way, but also having your own business is one of the things that we talk about. That's in our hierarchy of wealth. That is what is only tier 2, right? So we're big fans of having a business, but also what a lot of people have is great, Anthony, but I don't have a business, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where to begin. So like we always say, even when you're getting like a turnkey real estate or find your own deal, the more control you can have, the better, right? But sometimes we don't have the time or the expertise to find that house, right? Or to create and find that business. So whether just like a turnkey provider, like a franchise can be the solution. Because what I've seen, one of the biggest obstacles of a business is scaling, right? So where the owner isn't so actively involved, is we need to be able to scale. And to be able to scale, what you need systems in place. And I mean, I've done that when I was the CFO of a chain of restaurants. Trying to develop those systems take a long time. And sometimes you're wrong, and then it takes time to fix it. So this franchising can be a great way to start your own business. Cam, what takeaways did you have?
Yeah, I had what I really liked what he talked about when I asked him who are the people that are buying franchises lately, and what he referred to them as was corporate refugees. And I love that kind of phrasing there is, if you look at kind of the economic environment that we've been in over the last year and a half, is there are a large portion of the workplace has been displaced, and they no longer have that job, but they still have that skill set. And so the opportunity that I saw there was really meeting with Lance, talking with him, and maybe him having the opportunity to match your skill set with a franchising opportunity. And so if you stick around to the end, he does have an offer. And so we'll make sure that's in the show notes. But great interview. I really enjoyed it.
Enjoy the episode.
Lance, we are excited to have you here today. And before we kind of jump into some of our agenda items, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story?
Well, gentlemen, I'll try to make it brief because I'm getting pretty old these days. I'm 54, but it all started back in Brooklyn, New York, and both my grandfathers were incredibly entrepreneurial. So when people talk about how did somebody become an entrepreneur in the first place, the old nature versus nurture argument, for me, it's nature. Everybody seemed to be an entrepreneur in my family. So for me, at an early age, I thought I was going to work for my dad's company on Wall Street. And I realized after doing that throughout high school and college that I didn't want to be in the concrete jungle of New York City any longer. And I followed, call him a tech uncle who made money in tech before most people did. And I followed him to Arizona and started with his TGI Fridays franchise. And that's when I kind of got bit by the bug of franchising. And I realized, hey, this is pretty cool. Somebody else gets to stay up at night to figure out systems and procedures and sort of make sure that we as franchisees are successful. Well, that franchise grew from just the 4 stores that we opened or acquired to many stores within 5 years, or restaurants doing over 225 million a year in the late 80s.
Wow.
So it was a pretty substantial deal. And I guess you could say I got my MBA in the restaurant franchise world, thanks to Uncle Steven. And, from there, I realized I liked the restaurant business. I liked franchising. And that's pretty much been my path. I've been a Wingstop multi-unit franchisee, president of the Franchise Advisory Council for Wingstop. Krispy Kreme, I was the managing partner and a franchisee in multiple states. I've created my own concepts, a now famous donut shop called Pink Box Donuts out of Las Vegas. So
Nice.
I'm a serial entrepreneur. Let's put it that way. Some people think I'm a little nuts, but what can I tell you? Those are the highlights. Is that good?
Yeah,
That-
perfect.
Excellent. What about your current role? So what are you currently doing right now?
So because of that past experience, I fell into franchise development. I had quite a few consulting gigs in operations that led me to young emerging franchise brands, mainly restaurants at the time. And the founder or owner of that brand said, "Hey, you do the ops stuff, you do that well. What about teaching us how to sell more franchises or grow our brand?" And I said, "Well, absolutely. Why not?" Well, in the beginning, I had no idea what that really was about because I hadn't done it like anything, and studied up, learned from friends much older and wiser than me. And before you knew it, I had multiple clients and doing really well in franchise development. Several years ago, I probably had represented about 50 brands. And then I joined some brokerages, well, one large one in particular, FranServe, and they represent over 500 brands. So today, altogether, I'd say I'm over 600 brands. And so it's fun. I represent franchises in every single category. My services are free. I get a commission when I get a deal done. So people have a free resource in me.
Man, great. So you've got a ton of experience on the operations and now the selling side of it or the brokering side of it. What are maybe some of the trends that you've seen recently in the last 5-10 years or so?
Yeah, well, Cameron, it's a great question. I would say when Google was created many years ago, what is it? Probably 12 years ago these days, 11. When Google was created, the internet was created. I think a lot of franchise brands, going from the yellow pages in the old days.
Yeah, yeah.
How would you find a franchise or a business before Google? Well, nowadays, some of our brands, I have a brand called 5 Star Bath Solutions, and they'll tell you they're a technology company. So, if you ask Howard Schultz that created Starbucks, they're not a coffee company, they're a people company. And so every brand has a different kind of shtick, if you will, but so many powerful, successful franchise brands just kill the competition when it comes to the technology side. I have brands where 80% of a franchisee's business is brought to their doorstep through either a call center that the franchisor runs and owns and manages, or through SEO, through search engine optimization, especially local SEO. People Googling things like, I need my bathroom remodeled in Las Vegas, and if my brands have a presence in that market, they're going to pop up. But the home improvement space has just been killer these days. In franchising, for years, and it still really hasn't changed, restaurants and personal care brands have been the two hottest segments or categories. I mean, there's literally 400 segments or categories and subsegments, from cleaning. Look, you got home repair, home maintenance, cleaning, whether it's commercial or residential. Everybody's seen the maids or maid brigade or two maids and a mop, everything with the word maid in it. So Made in the Shade, but that's a window covering brand that's spelled differently.
So Lance, in summary, what I'm hearing, I think a lot of people think when they hear franchise, they're hearing fast food or they're thinking food. But what you're telling people, it can be any sort of business, right? It doesn't need to be flipping burgers.
Absolutely. So, Anthony, that is fabulous because that is a perfect segue because there are so many misconceptions in franchising. The two largest are that, number one, you have to be a millionaire to own a franchise. And I think that rumor, if you will, or misconception started because of what you just said. The prominence of fast food brands on every corner in America, McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, in our area, El Pollo Loco or whatever it might be. So, the reality is it's not true. You don't have to be a millionaire, and food is only one component of franchising. although it is a very prominent component. I mentioned personal care being a hot category for franchising, which also has a lot of recognizable brands. I represent Great Clips Hair Salon, Sport Clips. You got the European wax centers of the world, or eyebrow threading establishments. I have a new brand we're launching now in that category. So there's a lot of personal care, Massage Envy, for example, and La Vida, many others. So a lot of misconceptions.
Now, Lance, Cameron wanted me to ask you, does Paul Mitchell Salons franchise? That's what.
Well, I don't know. There are a lot of great real estate investments in the salon business. These salon suites brands, a lot of real estate investors get into. But no, I'm Paul Mitchell. I don't know. But, I do know that Cameron's favorite movie was Don't Mess with the Zohan, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay, Cameron, we get you nice haircuts.
So, Lance, because I know we want to talk about really how much money does it take and where does that come from? But before we do that, can you explain kind of the differences between a franchise or maybe starting your own business?
Yeah. So I tell people, like Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook. He obviously had a burning desire to have his own business and had an idea that he thought was fantastic, and clearly it worked. The majority of people don't have sort of that burning idea or desire to launch their own business because they don't know what that is. They don't, or maybe they have too much anxiety or fear that it's not going to work. So in the world of franchising, it's really a licensing relationship. It's a formal relationship so that you can use somebody's name and trademark to operate a business that they've created. And you must, in a franchise model, follow their system. So to use McDonald's as an example, you're using their brand, you're using everything they tell you. If the uniforms are green, you have to have green uniforms. If the uniforms are hot yellow, that's what, neon yellow, that's what they have to be. They'll give you training, they'll give you an idea on the HR side, but for the most part, they're giving you all the hard stuff. What are the recipes? What is the best equipment? How do you cook? They have to approve the real estate. So essentially, without spending a half hour going through every detail, franchise brands are proven. Proven needs to be clearly defined, of course. Well, what does that mean? And we can go through a little bit later, if you'd like, the legal aspects and what a franchise disclosure document is all about, because there are 23 items to it. We don't have to go through all of them now, but there's an earnings claim in there. For example, item 19 is the earnings claim or the financial representation. So if you look through a McDonald's FDD, there's going to be pieces in there that get people excited that says, look at this, you actually make money doing this. So I'll give you an example. I have a staffing company, name brand staffing company that has 800 plus locations. In their earnings claim, it doesn't say much, but it says if you're a mature franchisee, and the footnote says open 5 years or more, I believe, an average mature franchisee does 6 million in sales, not profit, but sales.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they make 10%, I'll take 6 million in sales and make 10% off $150,000 investment. So, but nevertheless, it's there's a whole process to going through the franchise system or the franchise process with me and any brand, because you also get to validate what you're reading in a franchise disclosure document by talking to existing franchisees to make sure that you feel comfortable that this brand is for you. In a way, it's like dating and meeting the parents. I guess that's the executive team and the CEO, and deciding whether you're going to go through with the marriage or not. So hopefully I explained all that.
What I'm hearing, some of the advantages is there's a proven system, proven brand, and you have some guidance, some hand-holding, and also you have the systems.
You have the systems, you have the procedures, you have the marketing, you have the purchasing, whatever it is, whether it's equipment or food products, like in the restaurant business, all of these purchasing relationships are set up. So generally speaking, you should be able to save money by purchasing, obviously, the appropriate way through this system. And yeah, and let me tell you, one of the things we could spend some time on is the exit strategy, because you guys did a podcast recently talking about the seen and unseen, and there's a lot of people that I talk to. And by the way, this is my interpretation of that in my world. There's a lot of people that I talk to that are very bright people that have never looked into franchises, and they say, "Look, I don't want to just replace my W-2 income by getting another job with my own business." And I said, well, I get that. So we can grow and scale that through multi-units or larger territories. I have a guy in the Midwest right now that might buy 7 territories of a home improvement brand, because he makes a substantial income now. And not only does he want to replace it, but based on the validation he went through with franchisees, he's looking at making $600,000 to $700,000 a year. But my point is the equity component. When a franchisee goes to sell, you have an opportunity to make, in the world of franchising, you're going to make typically 3 to 5 times your cash flow is what you're going to make on your sale of your franchise. When I sold my Wingstops, it was 4.2 times cash flow, I think, to be exact. And if you do the math on that, I have a friend that owns a bunch of franchise hair salons, and he's got $1.5 million cash flow. So he could sell for $6 million. Okay. So that's what a lot of people forget. That is or they don't even know. That's the unseen. And let me tell you one last piece. You asked about like hot franchises. I have a brand I talk about quite often on podcasts, and they're only a $68,000 investment, roughly, give or take some working capital, and you work from your home. And there are actually people that net more than $1 million a year from their house. And they actually have franchisees, one that I know of from the founder telling me, that sold his franchise for $1.5 million. It's a home-based franchise. Nobody would have ever thought it. So are you really, really just getting a job? I don't think so.
On that, is there... Because that's one of the things that I've heard about a franchise. Well, you were just buying a job.
Yeah.
But so are there different levels of time commitment?
Boy, you guys are good with your questions. Absolutely. 100%. When I talk
wait, hold up, Lance. You said you guys.
I had the first good one.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us about your story. Okay. Yeah. That was a good question. Okay. My bad. Go ahead, Lance.
No, you guys are great. So the reality is, in the first conversation I have with folks about what they are looking for, part of what is discussed is not only their lifestyle. A lot of people come to me in pain. They don't say they're in pain, but you can hear they're in pain. Mm-hmm. Like they can't stand doing what they're doing, and they've done it way too long. They just missed the last bonus they were counting on. Remember Chevy Chase in one of those movies?
Christmas Vacation.
Christmas Vacation. He was waiting for that Christmas bonus, and bad things happened as a result.
You got the Jelly of the Month Club.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the rest.
So none of us need that. So the reality is if you want to be an owner operator, you can be. If you want to be a semi-absentee owner, I have people that bring in a partner, a relative, whoever it might be. And then I have other people that want to be completely absentee owners. I have an incredibly hot concierge medicine brand that is killing it across the country, selling out whole states. It's a 1 day a week business in medicine. And guess what? You don't have to be a doctor, and a lot of investor types are jumping in. You don't even have to live in the same state. Absentee ownership is okay. Now, as you guys know, because you're both smart guys and you have a lot of smart listeners, most people are like, who the heck would not be involved? It's not like in buying a stock where you truly have no control. You're not Warren Buffett. You're not controlling the board of directors of a company potentially that you've invested in. You're a little guy or a little gal. So it's hard for some people to wrap their head around, what do you mean an absentee franchise? It does exist. I'm not saying that you don't go by the metrics. You're taught well how to know what to look for within the business and how do you make money? So yeah, I mean, in home improvement, a lot of people, I've heard the expression, chuck in a truck or stand in a van. You know, um, in other words, you are buying a job. You're getting in that van or that truck, and you're doing blinds in people's homes, or you're doing flooring, or you're whatever it might be. But for some people, like I said, it's the freedom that you work for yourself. You still set your own hours, and you are building equity for yourself and your family.
So we've kind of alluded to it a couple of times already. The misconception you said as far as how much money is needed to get started. Can you address that now? How much capital, or what's the kind of financial expectation of somebody that may be looking at buying a franchise?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to people. If you have $30,000 free, we can find you a brand. But typically, I'm talking to people that have 40 to 50 available cash on hand, and it's not their last 40 or $50,000. They might have some home equity or little money, for working capital as well. But there's quite a few franchise brands, Cameron, that are under $100,000. Very successful brands under 100 grand. Now with SBA financing, which is the most popular, the Small
Mhm.
Business Administration loves to stimulate the world, and I should say the U.S. with franchise growth, and now is no different time. In fact, they've offered various incentives: the first 3 months free, where they'll pay the first three payments, six payments, whatever, and you can put down as little as 25%. Just need a 680 credit score. It's not like buying a house where the better the credit score and better the rate. It's 2.75% above prime is what their rate always has been in my lifetime that I know of. 2.75% above prime. Prime's low now. It's they don't do any fixed rate options, but there are no prepayment penalties. So there are quite a few people that take advantage of the SBA loans. So
Now,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Larry.
Sorry,
Well,
sorry.
I would say that is another advantage of a franchise, of the ability to leverage. If you're starting the exact same business on your own, you don't have that track record. And I've seen it when I had my CPA firm. They had great pro formas, a great
Yes.
business plan, but the banks, they didn't have the history of the track record. They couldn't get the loan. But that same, if you just change the letterhead on there to somebody that has a track record, you
Yes.
can get that SBA financing. So that allows you to leverage.
Absolutely. The total exclamation point on your statement. Absolutely true. So, and Cameron, to further answer, so there's a lot of brands under 100,000. There's quite a few brands as you kind of expand that out. Quite a few brands that come right up to the $150,000 level. So that's kind of the sweet spot. I'm looking for a lot of brands for people that are right around 150,000. Some people that look, you get in the restaurant business, it's a big investment. Most of the restaurant investments I have are 500,000, right around that level. So be prepared for 25% down, and again, the SBA is very generous with the lending.
Uh, who's typically buying these franchises? Kind of, is there somebody that has maybe someone's in the corporate world that's trying to get out of it? And is there a certain skill set
Yes.
that you've seen that maybe they're more successful than others?
Yeah, it's all over the place. I have a guy right now. He's a private equity guy in New York City. Is sitting on $4 million. He doesn't know what to do with, and he wants to follow what his friends have done in franchising. But as sometimes people get when they're sitting on quite a bit of cash, the risk tolerance might be lower. So what do you got, Lance, in resales? So we go on the hunt looking for specifically existing businesses that he can feel comfortable with. But probably half of my business ends up being what I call the corporate refugees, as you started
Yeah.
describing
Hmm.
first. They're not liking what they're doing. It was 2 years ago, a guy named Mike from Ohio reached out to me through a lead I put out there. And Mike inquired about a brand in particular that I represent. He ended up buying 3 territories of this home-based brand. And Mike was a corporate guy that had been a corporate guy for 25 years. And he said to me, Lance, in about 5 years, I'm not going to have a job.
Mm.
So I want to beat them to the punch. and I want to find something for me. And Mike and I have stayed in touch. He keeps referring me business. He's never been happier, completely writes his own schedule and does whatever the heck he wants to do. But the other half are just, it could be anybody, literally anybody. I got a call from a teacher recently. So what do you got in the children's services, which we have a ton of brands and kids related services? There's quite a few teachers that get into tutoring franchises, and yeah, you can do a lot better with a tutoring franchise than you can relying on working for a school district. Although it's a great position. My mom was a school principal. My wife's a school principal. My sister. But if you want to make money, I have other opportunities.
I'll jump in. There's have you seen a trend, positive, negative? Are most people coming in and buying just one franchise, kind of a single unit, or more people coming in and buying multi-units or territories, as you mentioned?
Well, and that really depends. I talked to a diesel mechanic the other day. Very bright guy. He fell into the high school dropout. He fell into that business. He just learned a trade, loves it, but he doesn't like not being his own boss. This guy wants to get rich.
Yeah.
Lance, how do I leverage what I've done and what should I be doing? And we actually have a plan. So to answer your question, based on his limited capital, he's got about 40 grand. He's got the ability to maybe leverage his brother's balance sheet, because some brands are looking for a certain desired net worth. They're not necessarily going to give you a $150,000 franchise if your net worth is only $100,000. So, but as you can imagine, net worth can be, hey, brother, I need to attach you to my franchise agreement, give your brother a little bit of equity. Maybe he doesn't even need to put any cash in, but he's now a partner. So there's a lot of ways to do it. And guys like him are coming in, for that starter franchise, if you will. And that is something that exists. We've all heard the terminology of starter house. Not everybody can get into their 10,000 square foot house right away. So you start with 1,500 square feet, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll give you an example. One of my good friends, we work very closely together. He had somebody, this goes right to what you were saying. He has a couple that came to him 7 years ago and bought a home care brand. I just heard this story. They bought a home care brand, which is one of the most popular categories today. Why? Every day, 10,000 people are turning 65, and people want to stay in their homes. So this is what's also called companion care. Unfortunately, last year, my dad passed away. He had prostate cancer for years, and mom needed help. So besides me being with them for about a month to help until he passed, they had companion care folks from a local franchise come and help in the house, because mom can't do it 24/7. Neither can I. So this couple bought a home care franchise that my friend recommended. They're happy as can be. 7 years later, they reached back out to him and said, "What do you got now?" Now they bought 7 territories of a flooring brand that I have that is so hot. It's just flooring. There's no showroom. They've lasered in on the fact that most contractors don't know how to run a flooring company, but we're just going to do flooring install, and they kill it. Their ROI is off the chart. So there's an example of, okay, what's next? We've already grown, and we're happy. What more? So I got people all over the place. I mentioned the guy in the Midwest. He wants 6 or 7 territories of this other home improvement brand, because he wants to start as a semi-absentee owner and then eventually jump over to it. Well, he's already making $300,000 a year. So he needs to be able to, replace that income plus.
Okay, Lance, you've talked some great things and some advantages about franchises. And, what we tell us is that there's pros and cons to everything.
Absolutely.
Right? So kind of share, what are some of the downsides or obstacles if somebody wanted to start a franchise or to do a franchise?
And, I'm being redundant, but another great question. And I love the negative question, because it almost doesn't exist, but it absolutely does exist, because we've all heard the expression, this might not be for you. And the reality is, I give you a perfect example. Mr. CPA. I'm sorry, recovering CPA.
Thank you. Thank you.
I had a gentleman that contacted me through a friend. CPA, real estate investments, the whole 9 yards, has this property that he wants to buy 2 franchises for, or so he says. I connect him with brands that he loves. I set him up on a call with the VP of franchise development for one particular fitness brand that's incredibly hot. And he's late for the call. He finally gets on the call, no apology, whatever, She calls me as soon as they're done and says, Lance, very qualified individual. Thank you for referring him to me. But you know what? I don't know that he's going to match our culture. He's got an attitude. He thinks that it's his choice whether he becomes a franchisee with us or not. He doesn't understand it's a two-way street. Like a marriage, you both get to choose whether you two are going to work together or not. So I read him the riot act after that. And I said, look, this is how it needs to be. You got 1 strike against you already. He goes, oh, I'm sorry. I'm busy. I'm having a bad day. He did it again to her with no apology. And he was done. He was cut out of the process, and he was very upset. He was cut out of the process. He goes, are you kidding? They're not going to take my money? I said, not my brands that have integrity. No, not at all. So there are people that are not right for the system. In every franchise system, there is a bottom 10%. Whether it's McDonald's or any other brand, there's a bottom 10%. In most cases, that bottom 10%, if you listen to the top 10%, the bottom 10% are there because they don't follow the system. They don't trust the process. They aren't a good boss, no matter how much they've been taught it. There are exceptions to what I'm saying. I don't want to sound so harsh, but the reality is there are people that don't belong in a franchise system because they think they know best or they think they know better.
Lance, if somebody's listening right now and they're thinking, hey, this sounds good, but I don't know if it's right for me, where's a good resource? Where can they go?
On my website, ionfranchising.com, ionfranchising.com. There's a free assessment. It helps me understand your mindset, skill set, past history, comfort zone, risk tolerance, the whole shebang. It helps me understand. So that I get alerted when you fill that out. And you'll get a nice email that shows you sort of a summary of what you filled out. So you should learn something about yourself. But that's a great resource in addition to a lot of the things we already talked about today.
Can you share with us the website?
ionfranchising.com. ionfranchising.com.
Now, when somebody's filled out that assessment, have you ever told somebody, you know what, maybe franchising is not for you?
Yeah, and it's usually not just the assessment. I'll give you an example. I had a military gentleman, fantastic, impressive guy, also a police detective. He wanted to really, really badly get in the restaurant business. So for him, financially, he wasn't going to be qualified. So that's one example. That's all he wanted to do was do the restaurant business, and he just wasn't financially qualified. On the other side, I've gotten quite a few people just from the assessment. It jumps out at me, shocking, that they have zero sales ability. And then when I talk to them, or very low sales ability, and they talk to me and they go, you know that Schooley Mitchell franchise that you mentioned on the podcast that's a low cost, high potential income? I really want that. That's what I want. Well, you don't really have the sales ability. That's not you. Yeah, but I like talking to people. I said, well, that's all you're going to be doing is talking to people, but it's a consultative relationship business. And I don't, look, I can start you in the process with Schooley Mitchell and we could reassess. I'm not going to tell you absolutely no if you really feel that, but you might not pass the test at the end, so to speak. There's not really a test, but they'll know. They don't want somebody in their system that's not going to be successful. But we'll give people a shot. Those are some examples.
Great, Lance. Thanks a ton, man. We really appreciate your time and information today.
So, Lance, in summary, what I'm hearing is somebody's interested in franchising, they could go do their own research and contact the individual franchises,
They could.
or they work with somebody who has some experience to kind of walk them through it, and there's no cost to them. You have contracts with the franchisees.
I do. I have contracts with all
Franchisors.
of I have
Okay.
contracts with all of my brands, so there is no harm. Nothing will I'm just a free resource. So I want people to reach out to me for obvious reasons. And as a reward, when somebody tells me they heard you on your podcast, I'll be giving them some money back on the purchase of their investment in their franchise. So that's kind of my incentive to get people to call me. Unlike real estate, Anthony, in
Mhm.
real estate, you can avoid an agent and save yourself money. In my case, in the franchise world, you don't save any money by going directly to the brand. You pay the same franchise fee regardless.
Good to know.
Well said.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks again, Lance.
Okay,
Thank you,
Lance, thanks for your time, buddy, and go make it a fantastic day.
It's
Take
been
care.
my pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.